Welcome to Monday, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing is off the table. Tonight's guest is from Kimakura, originally from India, the beautiful India, but now resides, and for many years has resided in Mangere or Mangele 275, yes, South Okilani, who's an amazing wahine, whose background is in psychology, registered psychologist for many years, but now in terms of psychology, has a strong focus on childhood trauma, neglection, also abuse and violence, and also brain development as well. So she's an amazing woman who also is the founder and the director of her own incorporated trust called Diamonds in the Rough. And so all the initiative is about helping and empowering and equipping young parents, but also young wahine with babies. And so an amazing woman with an amazing heart, and even has an amazing, incredible story. Please put your hands together for the amazing and lovely Shilpa Wilson! Oh, Shilpa, thank you so much for gracing the table with us. But no, we do really appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy woman. Psychology. I had the luxury, I had the privilege of coming to one of your workshops, and I got to admit it was amazing workshop. And I'm not even just saying that. It was an amazing workshop, and the whole premise was trauma informed. And so I know a lot of people think, okay, trauma, and you hear that a lot of times, trauma. But when you talk about trauma informed, tell us, I guess to start the ball rolling, tell us, what is trauma informed, what does it entail, and what is it?
I think it's really being aware of yourself and the other person that you're engaging or supporting. It can be even your friend or your family member or somebody you're working with. But being informed about trauma, it's actually a dance, and it's a two-way thing as opposed to just the person that you're engaging with. So Gabor Mate, who you might have heard of, he says trauma is not what happens to you, but it's what happens on the inside of you as a result of what happens to you. And so I feel everybody's experience is valid, and if you're a human and you're alive, then you can't escape trauma, because everybody's been through it in some way, shape or form. You might have had a bad breakup or lost somebody, or maybe had a lot of childhood trauma. So there's, so much in there, but yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And because it is, and you hear it all the time, you hear a lot of, it's kind of been plastered on obviously on the media, and a lot of, in terms of well-being, trauma. But I wanted to ask you, because trauma, how does it manifest? I'm assuming manifests differently in men and in women. And so, can you give us a bit of, especially in the context of being in New Zealand, how does it manifest differently with men and women?
I think for starters, because men and women are so different, women, you put them around a table, even if they don't like each other, they'll talk. but we talk a lot. We're talkers, aren't we? Like, women like to talk, but men don't necessarily do that. I know it's very different in your space, and you've created a space for that, which is awesome. So when you're not able to talk about what's happened to you, I think it just adds on to the trauma that you've experienced. So say you've experienced some kind of trauma, whether it's, some kind of physical violence or sexual abuse or whatever it is you might have gone through. When you're not able to speak or share that, it kind of, you repress it. And it comes out in other ways, whether it's in the form of addiction or anger, or it comes out in other ways, whereas women are more likely to, in my experience, more likely to communicate that if they have a safe, nurturing, and connected space. So that's how I see it manifest. But also, if you look at trauma, it's when things happen to you as a child. If we look at, childhood trauma, children don't have the words to express what's happened to them, and depends on the kind of family that you've been brought up in, and depends on who you have around you. But sometimes people don't have that safety and connected relationship to share. Sometimes they don't know what's happening to them as a child, So it's often trauma that's happened in childhood that then manifests in your adulthood, and then can often be triggered by things that happen in your day-to-day life. Like, you find it harder to cope with things when you get older because of what's happened to you in your childhood, if that makes any sense.
That's good.
It's almost like it's been unresolved for years.
Yes.
And it remains unresolved.
Yes.
And then because of that, people have instead of addressing it, instead of addressing it, they're going around it, and that going around bit is what they end up using as a coping, eh?
Yeah, so a lot of people, I mean, I can talk about myself. So, years and years of stuff that had happened, but on the outside, I looked amazing because I was a registered psychologist, and I had a good job, a good family, I had a car, I had all the stuff at a young age, but so broken on the inside. And for me personally, my inner healing didn't happen till I was 36. I'm 42 now, but when I was 36 and I lost my mum and I got out of an abusive relationship, so it wasn't physically abusive, but emotionally. And I remember I had to make that choice. Like, I had to choose my worth. I had to make a choice to leave that. And I came face to face with all my junk, so to speak. And I could have pretended, but that wouldn't have got me. So I had to come face to face with stuff and process everything and deal with everything. So you can be this person that, is a professional and look like you have it all put together, but you have the knowledge bases and not necessarily the heart healing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, wow.
I imagine are there sort of self-defense mechanisms within your body that help people cope that they may not be aware of? And the other thing I was curious about, you mentioned emotional abuse. I don't actually know what that
is.
Yeah, what that is.
Have you heard of things like gaslighting, and have you heard of like the whole narcissism and gaslighting, that sort of stuff, or saying one thing, doing another, or just constantly being up and down? So in my situation, it was just very up and down, and again, that goes back to attachment, because we touched on that at the workshop. I feel like everything that happens in terms of relationships later on in life is to do with that initial attachment that you had with your mama or your papa or your caregiver, because there's, 3 main kinds of attachment, 4 if you want to be specific. But I feel like the person that I was dealing with, like, if you showed them affection, they ran away, but when you ignored them, they ran after you. Like, you know the Katy Perry song?
Which
you're
one?
Hot and you're cold. You're
Oh,
It was like that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of not very good. And usually, if we're honest, if we're in a relationship like that, there's something in us that we're not addressing, and that's why we're in it, And for me, it came down to really coming face to face with my self-worth and dealing with that and engaging that so that I could then leave this, because it wasn't benefiting either of us, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It just made me think about like how much of us is our personality traits versus like responses to trauma that we may not be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. Like, people pleasing is a huge thing. Like, so many of us, struggle with it, or, even thinking like, oh, like even today, like, how much can I share? Because who's watching? And, like what, the thoughts that go through our mind, like, like what will so-and-so think? Or what will that, that sort of stuff. We don't even realize, but those things get in the way of us actually growing. And so I've come to a point in my life where no matter what, if something is scary, I just do it because I know it's good for me. So I'm like, no, you're just going to do it anyway, But it takes a while to get to that point and to be able to override those kind of impulses. A funny story that I told at the workshop actually was there was a group of women that I had trained with ages ago, and I remember I was crossing the road at Mission Bay, and everything in me, like, I didn't realize they were on the left. I was crossing the road and I saw them, and my brain went into, because it's involuntary. You're not consciously choosing things, when you think about your threat response system and your fight, flight, freeze. Sometimes it's just happening. Like, you're not actually thinking about it. So you look at something, you're like, threat, ooh, I'm acting on it. And so I actually just turned around. I was in flight. I just walked all the way back up this hill. And because I know enough about like how this works, my conscious mind was arguing with, I was like, that is so dumb. That is stupid. Turn back around, go say hello. Like, stop it, But I couldn't. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn back around. So then I crossed the road with every intention of looking to the left. But instead, what do? I take my cell phone out, pretend like I'm videoing Mission Bay. And I was laughing at myself. I was like fully aware, But like, if I wasn't aware, like, there's so many things like this that we all do when we're not fully aware or conscious. It's just autopilot, because of the stuff that we
Is it do men do that too?
Yeah, I think we all do that.
Good,
for sure.
Good. Just checking.
Have you seen some of it?
What? No. All the time, I totally relate to you. When you're saying that, I'm sweating because it's just bringing up times, and I've done that when I've walked, and I'm like, yeah, that automatic response happens, and then you're just going with your impulse, but your logic is like, what the F are you doing right now? Like, turn around, don't move, no, address it, and you have this whole conversation in your head, and you're perspiring, and I feel you.
So this is like a good context, right? Like, that was a funny story, but then now let's transfer it to somebody that's been through, say, a lot of trauma. Like, I'll use an example of something that I've been through with our mama, where I come in, I'm kind of the age of their mums. You know, I'm not their mum, but I'm the age of their mums. Whatever trauma they've been through with their mums or their older sisters, it does sometimes come out here because they think, oh, can I even tell her how I feel? Because she might tell me off or cut me off or abandon me, or it comes up in the context of the relationship, and that's why healing can only happen. Like, so trauma is usually it's it's something that's gone wrong in a relationship with somebody, right? And in order for that to be healed, there needs to be some kind of relational repair. And so if I'm not healthy, I can't help heal, right? So, you know, that's that saying that has been going all around social media, like, don't bleed on those that didn't hurt you. You will bleed on the people that didn't hurt you, because when you feel safe and connected, it does come out. But then that's why you need somebody that's also willing to be on that journey of healing and growth, so they can handle that and support you. And, you know, it's a partnership and journey alongside you through whatever it takes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So you talked about, obviously you said healing, and so and also coping, because people think, oh, trauma and healing, how do I cope? And so what are some of the daily practices or coping mechanisms that could that people can do, or individuals can do to help them?
Yeah.
If you can.
So I think there's there's things you can do to deal with the root, right? So if you plant orange seeds, you're going to get an orange tree. So if you think of that concept, everything that's happened, if you look at childhood trauma and life experiences as seeds, then they've created certain fruit, right? So you might have addiction as a fruit, or anger as a fruit, and then so you can have root strategies, which is a lot harder, but once you do that, you're never going back. Or you could have the fruit, like dealing with the fruit kind of strategies to support you can do things to support your nervous system. And so I am a firm believer of doing some kind of practice that covers mind, body, spirit, soul, because as humans, we're not just a body. We have a mind, a body, a spirit, a soul, and a heart. So what are we doing every day to fill that need? And so it's very much in line with Te Whare Tapawha. Like, what are we doing every day to nurture that? So there are certain practices that you can do every single day. Like, even if you go for a walk for 10 minutes, as soon as you wake up in the morning, if you get some sunlight, because that's really good to set your circadian rhythm or your clock in terms of your sleep cycles, sleep and wake cycles. So getting some sunlight for 10 minutes first thing in the morning, meditating if people are into that stuff. If you're spiritual, you might read the Bible, whatever it is that your practice might be. Engaging in a heart-to-heart connection with somebody, like for at least 5 to 10 minutes, without looking at your phone, without having any other distractions, but completely engaging with this person. Listening to some kind of podcast that's going to be encouraging and help you grow.
Like Mandate.
That sort of stuff. And I have to actually give credit to Joseph Wilson here, because he is my brother, but he actually came up with the mind, body, spirit, soul stuff, because I do coaching with him. And so I do that practice every single day. And that's how I feed me, so then I can pour into others. But there's heaps of things that you can do. So for example, if somebody struggles with anxiety, and they're really anxious, one of the things that you might have come across on Instagram, if you follow, are you familiar with Andrew Huberman?
Yes.
Yes.
So the physiological side, you breathe in. So people often don't even realize that they're breathing, they may not be breathing correctly. So like, just to give you an example, my dad, he's 71, but he was in the army and he was a boxer, and he got taught to breathe a certain way for boxing. So he'll be sitting next to me, and I can hear him go, and I'm like, no, Papa, no. Like, this is, because actually how you breathe affects your inner state. And so teaching him, so if your breath in is like shorter than your breath out, it actually calms you down. But if your breath in and breath out is, that's like you're about to run like a marathon or get into a fight in the ring or something like that. So your body is all charged up with your adrenaline. You know, you can control a lot with your breathing. So you're probably familiar with Andrew Huberman's physiological side then. So are you?
No. I mean, I do watch because he's got quite a bit of content.
Lots of content, yeah. So he says the quickest way to calm your nervous system down, and you might only need 3 or 4 repetitions of this if you're really anxious, because when you're really anxious and when you're in that state, you don't actually have access to, you can be in a state where you don't have access to the rest of your brain except breathing. Like if you're having a panic attack, you know, like breathing is one thing you can do. And that controls so much. So he says, so diaphragmatic breathing, or people call it belly breathing. So you'd breathe in as much as you can. And
to fill it out.
Yeah. And when you think you can't go anymore, you take another in, like you think you might think you're about to faint, but you won't. And then you breathe out very slow, like. And so you do it 3 or 4 times, because it fills your body in with air, and then all the carbon dioxide leaves when you breathe out. And so when you do it 3 or 4 times, it's supposed to reset your nervous system, and it's supposed to be really good for anxiety and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the quickest way. But then there's all this other stuff as well. I mean, are you familiar with mindfulness and the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? And, you know, I think when we're anxious, it's because we're either worried about something that's about to happen in the future or something that's happened in the past. But when we can ground ourselves to the present and be aware of the present, then it takes the worries away. So if you can help somebody like ground themselves in the present, and it can be anything. It can be as simple as closing your eyes and then clenching and releasing each muscle group. So you might start with your toes and, you know, squeeze, release, you know. Because when you do that, you have a deeper release of like just relaxing when you clench first and then, yeah.
Oh, so you clench first and then
clench,
let go.
clench and let go. Yeah. And then you can work your way all the way up from, you know, try and like squeeze your calves if you can, you know, keep going up, like clench your glutes if you can, you know, and then do that sort of stuff and come all the way up. I get the girls to do it. I'm like, you know, clench your face, you know, as tight as you can. Release. Yeah, but then you feel like a release and you feel more relaxed.
That's cool. And is that mainly for anxiety?
I do that every week with the girls anyway, on a Wednesday when we catch up, because when they come in, and they love breathing, so we do box breathing, and then we do some meditation, and I take them through it because their heads are so full with everything that's happened, like, you know, because they're all young mums, they've been through a lot of trauma, they could have had a horrific morning, so they've just come in, so it's a good way to kind of ground them before we do anything else. Yeah.
Oh wow. That's cool. That's such good exercises. And I think when you're talking, you know, when you're telling us about what trauma is, straight away I think about the amount of relationships that have broken up as a result of, you got these 2 people who are trying to talk to each other, but instead of them talking to each other, their traumas are talking to each other, and how that's the battle, that's the conflict, and then all of a sudden that relationship's broken. And I just wonder, you know, like, this is not stuff that's taught every day. You know, trauma's not taught in schools. We're taught about personality types. We're taught about, you know, communication styles, learning styles, all of that sort of stuff. We don't talk about that stuff, and that stuff gets in the way of all of this other stuff. So how do you, like, what is, and I see trauma also being misused quite a bit. Like, people just chucking it out there. Oh, that's your trauma. And it's like, you don't know.
Yes.
You don't know. You know, like, people just chuck it out as a way to kind of, but like, how do we, you know, like, how do we manage this? How do we recognize when trauma's in between us right now? Because that can really ruin a relationship. They can really ruin a relationship when it wasn't even meant to, but you just couldn't get past. Like what you said, it's trauma back and forth. And if people can't recognize that, you can lose some very beautiful relationships.
Yes, yeah. I think it's such a hard one, because I believe that love goes one way, right? And if you take responsibility for your own healing, that doesn't guarantee that the other person will for their own healing. And it takes 2 people to choose. So in terms of, are we talking romantic relationships? Are we talking parent-child? Are we talking
I'll start with
children?
romantic.
You want to start with romantic?
Let's go there. We can,
It's a personal stakes here.
because the reason why I say that is because the divorce rates are huge. You can't always detach yourself from your kids. Can't detach yourself from your parents. We'll talk about those relationships later, but it's becoming more and more that that you can just out in a relationship, and I wonder how many of these relationships, if you just identified that it was the trauma that you were sitting in, as opposed to maybe you really weren't made for each other, but you wouldn't have gotten together in the first place and maybe had a relationship for 5 to 10 years. How do you recognize? Yes, we'll start with that one.
Yeah, I think it actually starts all the way back in childhood. Like, I feel like if we can do things in schools, in schools or in other spaces where we start off by even teaching people what emotions are, how to label them, how to express their feelings. Like, I often have girls that are 16 and 17 come around me, and I might say, well, how are you feeling? And I remember clearly one of them going to me, I don't know how I feel, Shilpa. I don't know how to talk to you about this because I've never ever, because usually you learn feelings in the context of, family. Your mum might teach you, your dad might teach you, your family members might teach you. But if you haven't had that, and then you end up in a relationship, you don't even know who you are, how you're feeling. They don't know who they are, how they're feeling. This is an extreme situation that I'm talking about, and you come together, and it is coping mechanism with coping mechanism. What have I learned? What's been common at home? Is it when I get angry, I yell abuse at you and then shut the door, slam the door, go back inside, and then come back out when you tell me it's dinner time and pretend like that never happened, right? Yeah. Or what kind of experiences have we had? Have we learned how to communicate properly? And that's something that I had to learn as an adult, because growing up, I was very much like a yes child, and then learning to be assertive, and like standing your ground without getting aggressive. That's a learning in itself. So to answer your question, I do feel like it happens, it should be happening a lot earlier on. But when you're in that romantic relationship, unfortunately, unless the other partner, because you can't make the other person choose to heal or to... Do you get what?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It has to be like a couple thing, eh?
Yeah, both choosing it. Yeah. Because what happens usually is, and what I've seen with my mums, or even in the relationships that I've seen in my life, one person takes responsibility and heals, and then the other person doesn't want to, and now there's this gap. And so then the person that's healed and grown and whatever has gone off now, because you can't stay in that relationship because it becomes very unhealthy, in terms of, and there's nothing more in common. Like, if you've ever had this space where you've grown and transformed internally and you've had that jump, and the other person, often people stay trying to get the other person to, but you can't, you can't force or control somebody to get to that point. They have to choose it for themselves. Yeah.
So I can imagine that must be quite unsatisfactory, eh?
For the couple.
For the person that's healed, and then
For the person that's growing.
It's like, come on, why aren't you, the gap's widening? And then the other thing of like, I can't grow too much because then the gap's gonna widen even more,
That must be that can stifle you. And then you start getting angry at the other person because you're getting in the way of me growing. And now I've got and I can imagine that can create some real, distaste in the relationship.
Yeah, it seems like I have to slow down now.
How do you navigate that though? If you're the partner that's found your healing and you're ready to, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, like, are there ways to help? I know it's their choice, but are there ways to help them without being like completely manipulative?
Yeah.
But are there things that you can do to like encourage them? I don't know.
This is so funny because this is like my story, but from a few years ago. But so I mean, you can encourage the person to have healthy connection with, like, I'm a woman, so like healthy communication with other males that are good role models to be able to have these conversations. You can talk to them and say, well, I'm happy to go to therapy or counseling with you, if that's the part that you decide you might want to go on. But for all of that, the person has to at least meet you there. Like, they have to be willing to have those conversations. They have to be willing to be open and vulnerable about their heart. And sometimes it can be a scary thing, because when you get to that place, it's actually like years of stuff that's got you to that point. So, would you trust somebody with your heart? Like, you know, as a man, like for you, like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, if you were in a relationship, I mean, you know, is that all right? Like, if we if you were in a relationship with somebody and you're like, okay, this person is growing, like, how would you feel about sharing your heart, or maybe this is wrong asking you guys because you're probably already open and vulnerable and like easy to talk about stuff, your feelings and stuff like that, or like from a male perspective, what do you think?
In terms of being vulnerable and sharing the feelings?
Because it's quite hard. Like, I'm not a male, but like from what I see and hear and understand, it can be quite hard to express your emotions and feelings, is it?
It's funny you mentioned that. I was going to ask you that what's some advice for men to be vulnerable and open in terms of mental health. But I think if anything, for me personally, I just have to feel safe.
Yes.
I have to feel safe. Obviously, you hear all the time people say, "Oh, this is a safe space."
Yes.
But I believe in order for this to be a safe space, you have to feel safe.
Yes.
And so if I feel safe, then it's probably easier for me to kind of share what's happening for me inside, internally, mentally, but also and be vulnerable. So I need to feel safe and just know that I can actually share. But I'm not sure about with Jay.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think for me, safety is definitely a big thing. But I feel like if I model it first and throw something out there that's I'm pretty vulnerable about. If I can be open about it, and then based on everything else, I'll share something that I'm okay sharing that others might find like, oh man, how can you share that? And then based on their response, then I'm like, okay, cool, that it's safe.
Yeah.
And hopefully they feel it okay enough to share back. But it is definitely different opening up like to my wife, where you can be as vulnerable as you want versus others. I think with guys, I don't know if it's a cultural thing because we grow up teasing a lot, and it's like everyone has to be the tough guy or the cool guy, so no one likes to be vulnerable. I think there's aspects of that play in the back of our mind that make us hesitant to share. But this might sound silly, but I know there was a quote from a show, I think it was Game of Thrones actually, where there's an imp on the show, and he says to a guy who's a bastard child, and he says, you know, I'm an imp, you're a bastard. Wear it as a badge of honor and no one can hurt you with it. And I've always thought, if I just own my insecurities and my trauma and I can share it openly and like, yeah, it is what it is. They laugh, all good. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Then at least I know where I stand in some of those conversations. But yeah.
That's good, man.
That's so good. And you probably give other people permission to be vulnerable as well. And I don't know if you've had other people reach out to you after and be like, hey bro, blah, 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 you know, because they feel safe and connected through that. And even what you were saying before about how, you know, people can say it's a safe space, but is it really? You don't know. Like, are you feeling safe when you come to a space? I find that with like our group of mums, people come and they suss things out. They look at exactly what you're saying, like when somebody shares, what's the response like? And oftentimes they come and they share their traumas for the first time in the circle, so they might share sexual abuse or rape, and sometimes it's very sensitive because it's actually to do with a family. Well, most of the time sexual abuse is with a family member, so they might share, and often it's stepdads or dads as well, so that kind of sensitive nature of it. Sometimes I've been surprised because you're with somebody for like a year and you know some of it but you don't know all of it, and then you might get them to speak and share their story, and suddenly they're like, you know, they just tell you everything, but because they felt safe and connected in that space. So, yeah.
It's good. I like that. And I think also depending on the relationship as well.
Yeah.
You need to trust that person. If you really trust them, how well do you know them? And then you can have the conversation. But I like what Jay was saying. Like, and you mentioned it, that when you're able to kind of share and be vulnerable, that people feel, oh, okay, if he's been vulnerable, then I can be reciprocal and share what's happening for me. So
yeah,
so that's cool.
We had a mum that was new, and then she came to a Walk for Worth event that we did where one of our mums that's been around for 7 years and been through significant trauma to do with her stepdad and has had kids to the stepdad. She shared her story publicly in front of everybody. We had like 80 people show up, and this other girl watching, and she went, nah man, if she can do it, like, you know, I want to heal and I want to go through my stuff, I'm ready, you know, because you're inspiring people by just being you. And in order to get to that place, shame has to break. And, you know, because a lot of the times people hold on to shame thinking it was their fault, but actually the things that our girls have been through, like, you know, excuse my language, but they do get, when they've tried to share their trauma with their family members, they have been called all kinds of names. They have been called, you know, sluts and hoes and like breaking up the family and all that kind of stuff. And so then they end up with mental health issues. Like one of our mums had shared, she was 16 and went through all of this rape and trauma and tried to talk to people, got called all of that, and then wasn't all right in the head after that because she obviously, you're not safe, no one protected you, no one believed you. You know, like if you go through trauma as a kid and you come from a safe family and you go and tell, you know, like with me, I told my dad, and, you know, my dad was very much about his hands back in the day, but I saw him protect me. And, you know, they kept me safe from the danger, so it never happened afterwards. But if you're not in that context where you're not safe, you're not protected, you can't talk to somebody, or if you do and they don't believe you, what happens then? Wow. You internalize everything. And so this lady ended up being in her late 20s and, you know, struggling with in the mental health space. I'm convinced that a lot of the stuff we're seeing with mental health and even with suicide and things, quite often it is around sexual abuse and trauma, because there's so much stigma and so much shame around this topic that people don't talk about it. And people are secretly dying on the inside because they've been through this, and they feel so much shame when it's not their fault, but they blame themselves. So quite often in the context of sharing and starting the journey to healing, it's also that when people are fear around them that they trust, it's also the conversation around, hey, you know, it's not your fault. Like, do you know you were just a kid? There was nothing you could have done. Oh, yeah, but I could have fought back. No, you couldn't actually, because if you look at how the brain works, like, you know, you're frozen. You're frozen in time, and actually you're a kid, they're an adult. You can't fight them back. And if you try to fight them back, it's to do with your survival. You know, like you might not survive. You might have died. So like actually you did the best you could in that moment, and good on you. But now we're going to move forward, and how we're going to heal, how we're going to grow. What does that look like for you, you know?
Oh, that's powerful. That's so powerful.
Just thinking about, like, because it's such a powerful trauma. I was just thinking about the role of, like, there must be some people that go through this and then coming to terms and being able to speak it is huge. That's a monumental step. And then just thinking in terms of the healing, do you ever find that there are people that have gone through this trauma, they want to heal, but maybe the resentment or the angers, because there must be some aspect of that where the resentment and the anger, having to hold on to it for so long, how do you help them unpack that? And, you know, if they decide to go down that path, I'm not
Part
sure.
of healing, you mean?
Or like of
holding on to the
holding on,
anger
like, because there must be a certain point where sometimes maybe they get to that point and actually they're not ready to heal, and there's still a lot of anger to unpack. And
so I can give you two scenarios. In one scenario with a mum who I've known for 7 years, who had the situation with her stepdad and stuff. It was such a slow journey. So what she would do, she would just come and go, because when things got too much for her and she didn't know how to confront things or ask things, because she hadn't been taught to challenge an adult. You know, it's a good thing to challenge an adult. Like for her, though she's not a kid anymore, I'm still the adult. So she would come and go, but the door was always open. So the unconditional, like, love, really. But then she was able to process little bits of her trauma over time. And one crucial thing that came up, because she shared her story last year with an event that we did, and she was going to share it again this year. And of course, because of the years of trauma that she's been through, her memory, like, there's a lot of repressed memories. And also she finds it really hard to sequence and to organize events, because obviously it's all jumbled up. So here's us sitting at this on this, you know, FaceTime for 2 hours the night before she's meant to do all this, you know, the speech. And I just put it to her and I said, hey, you know what, like, you're probably going to get pissed off at me, but this is a good time to think about, you know, where was mum in all of this? Because it was to do with the stepdad. And she just, because of the 7 years of the journey, she just looked at me and she went, you're pissing me off, but this is good for me. And I went, yep, that's fine. We don't have to talk about it. But then, crazily enough, she came to run a workshop with me because she's trained to be a mentor, and she wanted to share her story in Northland. And one of the mums there went, hey, where was your mum in all of this? You know, a question came. And I said, hang on. And I was like, And she's like, no, I need to go here. This is good for me. And she stood there through tears, telling her, please ask me, because it's bringing memories back and I want to process this. This is good for me. And, in the context of that, something that she shared, which was actually really powerful and I didn't even realize, she said, when all of that stuff was happening to me, I said to my mom, Mom, why didn't you just kill me? Like, why did you do this? And like, why did I have to go through this? And she said, her mom said to her, no, you're my fatu. I could never do that. You're my heart. I could never do that. And then she turned around and she pointed to me and she went, this woman here, she said, she hugged me and held me, but my own mother didn't hug me and hold me when I was going through all that. And I went, oh, even a hug and holding somebody, you don't realize people have not had that. They have not had that space where they can just be comforted and where they can just, and where do they go with all of that? Because no one was born in isolation, right? So this is a girl that's ready to heal, deal, move forward. Then we have the other side, where people can get really like bitter and angry and also question like, how dare you ask me to forgive? But it's like understanding the concept that forgiveness doesn't mean that you have that person in your life or that you're going to be best pals with them. Forgiveness just means that you're going to release them and release that weight from your heart so you're not carrying it everywhere you're going. And so we had a situation where I was called into because I've traveled to quite a lot of the teen parent units in this space, and I was asked to cover this topic, and it really annoyed two of the girls, and one of them just said to me, nah, I'm never going to forgive, blah, 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 you can't make me. And I said, no, I'm not even trying to make you forgive. I'm just trying to explain what it is, and then you get to choose. But I find that when people do that and they're not willing to let go, it's actually like, it's that saying, it's literally that saying of like, you drink poison and hope the other person dies, but actually it's killing you on the inside because the weight is in you. So sometimes people choose not to, and then that's fine. It's their choice. Like, there's never any pressure because you can only tell them and explain to them why. But yeah, and there's a big thing on that because there's also this other doctor who does a lot of work on narcissism. She's all over like social media and stuff, Dr. Ramani, and she's out there. Have you heard of her?
Is she the
Indian
Yeah.
kind of
Indian?
lady?
Yeah.
I don't know. She's
older
Indian, but
woman,
she looks Indian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure she was on the School of Greatness podcast or something, and somebody asked her like, hey, about forgiveness, and she said, no, you don't have to forgive. No, I'm strong on like, you can never forgive, and I'm like, oh, well, so everyone has a different belief system.
Do you know
on
why
that.
do you know what her context was around not forgiving?
No, I'm not sure of the details around that, but she does talk a lot about narcissism, and if you're in relationships where people, so for me, I think sometimes people misunderstand the meaning of forgiveness. I think because people think that person has to be in your life and all this carry on, but it's not that. And I think when people realize it's just because you're carrying this weight with you when you're ready to release it. So this mom that I told you about that came to Northland, when she faced her perpetrator 2 years ago in court, and I was there because she'd asked if I'd be her support person, she read a letter to him, and in that letter she had written, and I choose to forgive you and I release you from, and I hope your life changes, and I hope you choose God, all this other stuff. But that helped her, and that freed her, as traumatic and as awful as it was. No one's going to blame her if she chooses to not forgive, because that's awful stuff to happen to you as a kid. I'm talking 12, 13, 14, but yeah, I just see it. It's completely different. It's two different parts when you choose to versus when you don't. Yeah.
What about those individuals who are like in the process of the healing journey, Shilpa, and they're like, okay, they're doing some inroads to look at this progress, but how can they build resilience even after experiencing some significant trauma? How do they kind of maintain that?
Mm-hmm. The first thing is, are you safe? Like, is that situation that has caused the trauma, is that not happening anymore? Because you cannot heal from something until you feel safe, until your body feel safe. So again, to use the example of this girl, because one of our volunteers had adopted her. So when she was removed from a family home, all she did for 3 months was literally sleep, because her nervous system was just like, I'm safe now. So all she did was sleep. And then at the end of the 3 months, then I started talking to her about, hey, let's have some goals now. What do you want to do with your life? Well, how about we just do the mind, body, spirit, soul stuff? How about for your body, just do 30 squats, 30 push-ups, 30, just start slow, and then we're going to build up on it. Like, give her like a focus to start moving forward with life. So I think just starting off being safe first. Are you safe? Are you away from the threat or whatever's harming you first? B, like having a plan. Like, do you have a support or safety network? Like, everybody has their village. I have my village. I'm sure you guys have your village. You know, it takes a village. It literally does.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do you have people in your corner that have your back? Because I believe that every person needs one person in their life that doesn't give up on them, no matter what. And usually it's your mom or your family member. But if you don't have that, then who's that person for you, right? So that, and then having specific goals that they're working towards, and also the mind, body, spirit, soul stuff, or te whare tapawha sort of stuff to nurture yourself every day. When it comes to resilience also, Catherine Burkett talks about like this window of tolerance that you have, like if you want to increase your resilience, you want to be doing something that's a little challenging, because if you don't do that, you're not going to grow in that resilience. So for example, if you go to the gym and you start off with you're doing some bicep curls, whatever, and you might start off at 2 kgs, but you can't stay at 2 kgs forever. But at the same time, you can't go from 2 to 10, you know. So it's like, how do you gradually progress? So in that sort of, if you look at that sort of concept in life with other things. So for example, if you get an opportunity and maybe you're terrified and you don't want to do it, but you know it'll be good for you, show up anyway. Put yourself out there anyway, you know. And because the only way you can heal is through that action taking. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, if, as hard as it is, if you can make yourself take action, like small steps, you will get there. It's just one small step after another, like you will get there.
Good advice. That's good. Jeez.
It's got to stand in it, eh?
Yeah, and
like
that's
what
why
you said earlier. I like what you said earlier. When you're scared, go show up anyway.
Yeah. I think it's so important, because oftentimes, because of perfectionism and other things, we get stuck. We want something to look perfect before we release it, or we want to be the perfect version before we show ourselves, and that keeps us stuck, because that actually stunts our growth. Because if we're like, okay, I'm going to show up as I am. I think I read a quote somewhere, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but I think the person said something like, if your first anything was amazing, then you released it too late, you know, because you are going to make mistakes. It is going to be a mess, and that's part of the journey.
That's so good.
So like, are you going to, you know, like if you want to grow, you have to be willing to let version A come out before you can get to version Z. But everybody wants the Z, and it's like, no, you just start somewhere. Like, I think about diamonds. It literally started off after the car crash. It literally started off with one session, just for every young mother to know that regardless of having a baby at a young age, you can pursue your passion and your purpose, and you are loved, all that sort of stuff. I did not know 7 years later that it'll be a nationwide charity. I did not know any of that. It was just like, started off with one step, and then like the next step was the school going, oh, can you come and do weekly sessions? The girls really liked it. Oh, okay, next step. You know, like, you don't realize, but as you build on it, like, you just grow.
It's good. Good.
Did you say it started after a car crash?
Yeah. So we did it the other way around. I didn't share anything about my story.
But yeah, tell us. Yeah.
So the car crash, or do you want to know
Who? Yeah. Well, we're gonna go all the way back, aren't we? At some stage.
Okay. So the car crash actually happened 4th of June 2017. Actually, I was headed home on the southern motorway. I live in Mangere, and two boys are racing each other. And I was in the middle lane, and you know where Mahanga drivers? It happened so fast that I didn't even realize that this car had whizzed past me, and the other car was behind me, and he was trying to overtake. So he misjudged and miscalculated and clipped my bumper, my rear bumper. My head went through the window, and I was spinning at 200 kilometers, and I thought I was going to die. Like, in that moment, I was whacking the median and stuff, and they scraped the whole side of my car and landed on their roof, and they were just sliding. And it was very, very crazy, quite ironic, because I was working with ACC at that stage with people with the brain injury, and then I go have a brain injury. So I ended up with a massive cut to my head, and they sent me to Middlemore, did a brain scan. They're like, oh, you're fine. And then they stapled my head, and then they just sent me home. And then so I didn't, apart from that initial, I didn't have anything else happen. But I had glass pieces in my head for 2 weeks after that. And my sister would sit at the edge of the bed and like pull out these little, because obviously my head went through the, so it was very interesting because that got me to think about purpose. And I was like, if I died today, would I be happy with the way that I'm living? And if I, I'm standing in front of my creator, would I be like, oh yeah, I did everything I'm meant to be doing and why he sent me here? I had a great paying job. I was a psychologist and everything in my life was great. But I knew when this happened that I didn't actually fulfill my purpose, that I was here for more. And so because of all my past experiences in the community, mostly South Auckland, Glen Innes, all those places with a lot of kids that would get in trouble, the ones that would get in high speeds and the ones that I would go to court to support and stuff, not to do with work. This was completely separate in the community, just hanging around kids, feeding them, all that kind of stuff. One of the girls came back into my life when I hit my head. And she was 14 when she had her first baby, and she was 21 at that stage, had 3 kids to 3 guys, and they were all with Orang Tamariki, so she wasn't in a good place. But that's when I realized about teen parent units. I didn't even know they existed, and I was shocked because I worked for the Ministry of Education for 6 years in South Auckland, and I was literally down the road from one of the teen parent unit that I started in at Tangaro College, Otara. And I was quite surprised that they even existed. So that's how Diamonds actually started, like with going to the teen parent unit and saying, hey, I just want to volunteer my time and just run a workshop and see if I can support the young mums here. That's how it started, yeah.
Wow.
So the car crash. The car crash that changed my life.
And so you went from being a full-fledged psychologist for ACC, go to the hospital, they send you home.
Yeah.
You got to figure this all out on your own.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And like if I didn't study what I did, I wouldn't have known what was happening because you've taken such a big hit, you get angry really easily. And so my room was upstairs and I remember if anybody asked me anything once, they were safe. But if they asked me the same question twice, I remember just screaming, shut up, because it would just be too much for my head. And then I remember sitting in my room going, oh my gosh, this must be what my clients feel like. And then all I did was watch funny videos and just walk because I would get giddy otherwise. But actually, I got cleared to go back to work in 2 weeks. It was weird. They were like, you're fine to go back. And I said, can I please have 6 weeks? I just need to figure my life out. And so, yeah. But it's interesting how much power we have in our mind, in our brain, and what we're telling ourselves. Because the first time I tried to write a psych report, I remember 2-3 months later, I was sitting there. I could not even concentrate for 10 minutes. And I messaged my brother. He comes up a lot, but he is he's my coach as well. And he said to me to write down a list of affirmations for my brain. And he was like, you'll have what you say. So I wrote down these affirmations and I would just read it to myself all the time. And then soon enough, I was able to do, I know, and not everyone believes in this stuff. And yeah, I could have gone, to I don't know, OT, PT, gone and got the professional support or whatever, but this is what worked for me.
Wow.
Just nourishing myself and just reducing stimulation and then that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Wow. How much of those kind of activities how important is believing in the activity that you're doing versus just doing an activity? Because it's interesting, you're right, so many people do different things and so many different things work for different people. But I often, you look at traditional healing, for example, all those rongo practices. And I remember, there's a class that went there and half of the class were like, no, this is part of our culture. I believe this is going to work. And it did. And then you have the other half of the class that are like, skeptical, but they'll engage in it. And then the following week, you'll hear that the half that believed in it worked and the other half that was skeptical didn't work. So I also wonder how much of it do you have to believe in for it to really work for you?
It's huge because think about the placebo effect, right? People that think they've taken meds actually heal even if you give them sugar pills, for example. There was actually a study done, and I can't remember, I think her name was Alicia something, but I can find it for you later. They did this study in America where people went through thoracic surgery, back surgery. And it's supposed to be a really, really painful surgery. And so they had this group where they told the person that was about to undergo surgery that they are putting morphine into their drip, like in front of them. They voiced it and they said, oh, just that should help with the pain. With the other group, they still did it, but they just didn't tell them. And they noticed that though the other group had morphine as well, they reported higher pain levels than the one that was told, hey, we're putting morphine in the, like just the psychological, it can make, it makes a huge difference, even for neuroplasticity or changing the way your brain is wired. Being intentional about it, about every activity or what you're trying to change, means that you will get there faster than if you're just kind of just doing it, versus actually being intentional.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful. What does your brother do?
So many things. He's like a purpose coach. Like he helps people on their purpose and stuff. And so I wouldn't be here if not for him, actually, for many reasons, because there's so many stories I could tell. But even when my head was hit, he was the one that actually championed me when I said, I really want to do something with my life. Like I don't want to, die and not having fulfilled my purpose. And this is what I'm thinking of doing. And he was really good. He actually supported me to initially. I said, can you run a workshop with me? And he said, oh, okay. What am I talking about? I said, I don't know. Like that was literally our first. I was like, I don't know, but we're going to have some young moms there and we're just going to encourage them. And like, you're really good at this stuff, so you should come. And he's like, okay. And then it was crazy. Even the first workshop, like, it's so funny. It's like, you have to just go out there and do it. Because then that's how. So it's not like I knew what I was doing. But then over time, as we got to know the issues and the challenges, and it's not just a matter of contraception like some people seem to think. It's so much deeper and complicated. And then so he actually even kind of like supported me until I started flying. And then he does a lot of cool things. Nationally and internationally. He's a good guy. You either really love him or don't like him, but
he's your brother. He's your brother.
Yes, of course, I love him. But I mean, like other people, like in terms of I think when you walk into your purpose a lot, like even now with me speaking, there'll be some people that won't like what I'm saying, or there will be some people that go, nah, I disagree on that, or there'll be some people that go, well, paragraph A, line 1 says, and you spoke opposite to that, so you are wrong. You're always going to have, like, I think the more you go into your purpose, you polarize like you will polarize people like and yourself, because people will be like, oh, nah, can't relate. But your tribe will totally be for you and they will totally champion you. And so I mean it from that perspective,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Do you still practice within the clinical, like, parameters, or it sounds like to me because you're in your purpose, you're now just meeting where people need you to be?
How do you mean where people
like
need
when you're it sounds like with what you're doing right now, because it's purpose driven, you're not just abiding by the rules and the guidelines and the regulations that quite a lot of clinical work is bounded by? Yeah,
so I'm not with the board or anything. Like I'm not with the registration board.
Do you feel like you have heaps of freedom to be able to work with people based on where they're at?
Yes, and I understand why the board exists, because obviously if you're somebody that's not big on ethics or something, you can totally abuse that and misuse that. So I understand all that side of things. I've got like really good holistic coaching support from Joseph. So he actually does a lot of work in that space with people in businesses and even one-on-one and stuff. I also have maybe 2 or 3 women that are like CEOs of different organizations that I glean from and I hang out with, and they teach me stuff because they're older women that have been through a journey, and like you can learn from them and stuff. So so I do different things to keep myself safe, and I'm very open about everything with like even with the board of diamonds, and like my issue will be, oh, you need to shut up, not like not communicating. So just to keep myself safe, I do have all of those things in place, but I do find that yes, I have more freedom because like for example with the girl that I was telling you about who we one of our volunteers had adopted and stuff like that, the journey with people that are healing, you can't put a time limit on healing. You can't say, 6 weeks you should be done, 12 weeks you should be done, like my program lasts 6 months, you should be done, like we can't say that. And so with our girls, healing takes as long as healing takes, and there's that wraparound of unconditional love and support. and you take as long as you need, and you are not judged for however long you need or the nature of your trauma or what it looks like. You're just accepted fully, and you belong fully just as you are. You just come as you are, and when you're ready, you'll get there, and it's okay. So over time, you just see people change. Like one of our girls who came in last year, she contacted me on our Facebook page, and she was so anxious to come to the first session. She showed up at 12:30, which is when our session finishes. And so we're walking down the stairs, and I've never met this girl, and she's just standing there, like frozen, like and fully like in her threat response, frozen. And I'm like, hi. And she's like, oh, it's me. I messaged you yesterday. And I went, oh, cool. And like the session's done, right? Like people are leaving. I'm like, do you want to come in? And she's like, I'm literally frozen right now and I can't move. Like, is it okay if I hold your hand and like, you want to come in, have a drink, like come and like say hi? And so it was very much like step by step and baby steps, but she's running sessions now. Like it's been a year. She's running sessions and she's like fully in her identity and her strength and her voice. And so like Diamonds is all about that. Like once you heal, like finding your voice and the power in your story, and like there's no shame here, and how do we grow and heal? And then if you want to come and help other moms, you can.
Yeah.
But there's so many stories like that of and then sometimes people come and then they go away for like a year, and then they show up again, and then they're like, oh, I got what I needed last time, and so I'm back for some more. And that's okay, no questions asked. And then and sometimes people disappear, and that's okay. Like sometimes they come back 2 years later and go, I miss this, I need this in my life. Okay, let's go. Like it's just wherever people are at, you meet them where they're at.
Is there an organization like that for boys, men?
No, but maybe there should be. I don't know.
Yeah,
well, because I actually, I often think about our young dads, because I'm one woman, right? And I'm with our young mums. I have had the privilege of meeting some of the young dads, and they've been through so much trauma in their own journey, and they process differently, and they need a different kind of help, which I can't give them, And so we did try to help by putting some good men around. Like in one situation, we tried to help by putting some good men around this one young dad who had drug-induced schizophrenia and was really struggling in his own personal life. But when it came to it, he just said, I don't want help. Like, I don't want this. And so that was a situation where the partner had grown, and she got to a stage where, because she would just say, because there was like family, intimate partner violence, all of that stuff happening. And she would there were times where I even rang the cops on it. She'd be like, can you ring the cops? And we would organize like a respite for her. But then she would ring me back half an hour later going, you're going to kill me. He just came back and I just took him back, And it's like, it's okay, because it's going to take as long as it takes. And all the agencies are aware. People know, But she just said, I'm going to grow and I'm going to do me. And I'm finding it hard to leave him. I don't want to be alone, but I'm just going to do me, and I'm going to keep growing. And that's what she did. And then the gap widened. And then over like 2021, COVID, the second lockdown in Auckland, she left him. And then when I saw her 2-3 months later, I went, what happened to you? Because she dropped 15 kgs and everything. And I said, what happened to you? You look really good. And she said, oh, the trauma's gone off my life. I said, did you leave him? She said, yes, I did. So that was on her own accord for her growth. But then at the same time, I think of him, because I go like, maybe one of you will start something.
How important is that, like what you just highlighted there? Because, you do Diamonds in the Rough, and it's about wahine, helping wahine. But for men, how important is that male relationship with with other men?
It is very important. I feel like women need women and men need men, aside from your partner relationships as well. And oftentimes most of the girls tell me, like, if they are with a partner, they say, oh, he's just on the PlayStation the whole time, or I find it hard to bring him to things, or, Sometimes we do have really awesome and well-engaged partners that come to our Christmas celebrations and things that we do, and they're like, hands-on dads and stuff. And I really think it depends on where you come from or the family dynamics. Because if you've had some love in your life, you're more able to do that. It's not their fault that they're in the situation that they're in. But yes, the healing is our responsibility. I remember my mom used to always tell me, once you're 12, don't blame me for things, like, you're grown now. Once you're 12. She would say that. But Yeah, I feel like it's very important for men to have that community. I just don't know how or who. But if they do engage with us, like we did do a couples workshop once, and we had some of them come to it and want to journey alongside. But I think men also respond differently. Like with the sessions that we offer, the girls will be happy to sit there and talk through stuff and do different activities and things like that. I think men, like, again, I'm going back to Joseph, but actually he does this thing called move, and they go away. Like men go away and they do their healing differently. Like, you know, the weekend, they'll go away for the weekend, and all these husbands and dads are coming back completely transformed after a weekend away. But what they've done is they'll do a crazy group workout together where they divide into groups, and like, you know, like maybe they have 500 push-ups that each team has to do, and somebody else carries you and your team, and you learn to be humble, and you might lose it and go, "Rah," you know, whatever, but in the context of the brotherhood. And then they might go shoot something, and then the intimate healing stuff also happens, you know. So again, this is something that you guys might talk to more in terms of healing.
No,
like
good.
How would men respond? And especially getting that age group, like 15 to 25-year-old men, boys/men, like how would you?
Well, that's a good question, because I do some work in the schools, and a lot of the boys that are kind of around the same age range you're just talking about, especially after COVID, and it was just very sensitive topic in terms of some of the boys, and a lot of teachers were saying to me, even though some of the social workers saying, hey, there seems to be a spike in aggression. A lot of the boys are aggressive. Attention span is just out the window, out the gate. And so I wanted to ask you, because there's a lot of anxiety, in a lot of our boys, and obviously a lot of aggression. But I wanted to ask you, why? Because it seems that there's a spike and increase of anxiety. People are anxious. A lot of kids are anxious. I don't know if it's social media. I have my own speculations, but I just want to say, why is there a spike, increase of anxious kids, not only kids, but also adults? What's happening there?
So there is research, and I can't quote specific ones right now, but there is research to actually show everything that you're saying. So social media, COVID, all these things have definitely impacted a person's psyche and their mental health and well-being. And again, in terms of anxiety, a lot of schools are reporting that children younger and younger are experiencing it. I think a lot of that, you know, to do with, I don't know about you guys, did you guys find that, do you ever think after COVID, like even last year and this year and stuff, have you ever had moments where you've gone, oh flip, I didn't realize this happened and it's a result of the lockdown I was in? Like, have you had any of those kind of moments or not really? Because we were in lockdown for so long, and a lot of people are still dealing with the repercussions of the lockdown, or like, you know,
people are not going back to work. Like that's one.
Yeah.
Not their movements are.
So even some of the habits they've created during lockdown is just kind of.
Yeah, and even the because it was almost like you couldn't really socialize with people, talk to people, you know, when we all wore masks and stuff, and then you could only go one by one to the supermarket, and all of those social norms that were changed during that time. So we don't realize, I think, coming back to normalcy as well, like it takes some time. You don't realize some of the habits and things that you get into during that time. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that. Or
Yeah. I think we are. Like last year was a huge reset, like trying to start again, but people were all at different places. This year, there's an expectation that people are starting to come out, but still, it's still at different paces.
Yeah.
Like the hybrid work environment. I mean, you hear National now saying, go back to work, back to work. And it's like, are you trying to force that now? Like after 4 years of that kind of life, that's not easy to do. And you can, and I think even the way people engage with food and exercise and outdoors, but we're not really, unless, I mean, now that you ask it and I'm thinking about it, I can see, some of this is because of that.
Even the, like for the kids, their routines and stuff would have been out of whack, you know, like they're not going to school every day and you don't know what's coming when. And then even the way the education system is at the moment is different to what it would have been like pre-COVID. So there's been a lot of, I think, because with a lot of uncertainty and when there's not much structure, that definitely increases anxiety. because as humans we are wired to we feel safe within structure, or if we know what's happening or what's coming, and definitely again, like with the aggression and boys, so much happens there. Like, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, all the men in the space, but when you're little, that's some of the stuff that you had touched on about how like when you're little and you hear men, like, boys don't cry, like, just shut up or I'll give you something to cry about, or that sort of stuff, and it's so ingrained in you, then to feel comfortable and be okay about like changing that and being like, actually it's okay, like men do cry, like we have emotions too, and tears are normal, and that's how we release stuff, and that's how we feel better, and that whole thing there. Like, it starts when you're a kid, doesn't it? Because there's a different expectation almost if you're a man or if you're a boy, that you would be a certain way because you got to toughen up, harden up. And actually some of our girls have that too. Like some of the girls from like the South Auckland mamas, they've been told like a lot of that stuff. So the whole harden up, toughen up, have to have everything together, have my guard. Yeah.
But going back to your original question.
I'm sorry.
Because I went on a sorry, Shilpa. No, you don't have to apologize. I took us to a whole different trajectory in terms of being anxious, anxiety. But in terms of the brotherhood, you mentioned brotherhood, and I know Jay might have a different perspective. But I think for us as men, it's got to do with a lot of testosterone action. You just got to be doing the camaraderie, being around men who want to do things, or who want to find purpose. And I think a lot of for us, in terms of, or for me personally, it's just like you said, finding purpose. And I feel like if men are in their purpose or working towards the purpose or whatever goal it is, it really does help in terms of just whatever trauma it is. It's just there's a newfound journey, a newfound purpose. So this kind of helped me during those times, those hardship times, or those struggles. Like, oh man, I'm not good at this, I'm useless, all that kind of stuff, all those negative self-talk. When I feel like I'm in my purpose, then I feel like no, I'm in a good space, good headspace. So that helps me. But, Jay?
It wasn't until it was asked, I was like, I haven't really thought about it too much. I've never really felt any kind of camaraderie with anyone outside of my own brothers. Like Bradley, the producer, he's my brother. But there's 6 of us boys, and I think outside of my family, I've only ever really bonded with my brothers. Like, I've found it quite difficult to have male friends. Like, I get along better with female friends. I don't know why. They're easier to talk to than I've found with my male friends. We have different interests. The only thing that I can think of where I've been able to find male friends is in suffering. So something about suffering towards something, or sharing the same kind of suffering, draws us closer. And then we have this mutual ground where it's like, life sucks for both of us, but we're doing something that's bigger than ourselves. And that's where there's some sort of bonding, some sort of understanding there. And I just wanted to touch on some of the other points that were mentioned before. So by trade, I'm a school teacher in Manurewa.
Oh, cool.
So I teach year 5 and 6 students.
Awesome.
And just thinking about, we had talked a little bit about COVID, and there's this pressure now because the kids missed out on schooling for that period, for them to be at a certain standard that was there but pre-COVID. But obviously these kids have missed out, and I've always felt like these kids are not really going to know the impact of COVID until they hit their 20s, or till, it's still going to be quite a while before the reality hits of like just how much it affected them. And we were talking about even things like interactions. Pete had mentioned social media, and, during COVID we interacted through Zoom. And I think there's something there about, when we interact in person, there's lots of different things we can call on as distractions. Like if I'm talking to Peter, we can talk about the lights, we can talk about the door, or how warm it is, or the planes that fly overhead. But on Zoom, it's very intentional. There's nothing really you can talk about other than why you're there. And so it's almost confronting to go from the space where you can distract yourself and talk about anything to like, we're now in this virtual classroom, stuck in a screen. I can't even see your background. We just have to listen to a teacher and like work on this assignment forcibly almost. And then it made me think about like the aggression Pete had talked about. And this is just thoughts in my head. But, I've noticed in the schools that I've been at, like, kids aren't allowed to play rugby or contact sport. And it just made me think about like, what healthy forms of aggression are being allowed, where kids, both male and female, can like express their aggression or their frustration in ways that aren't going to be frowned upon or they're going to be growled off. You know, maybe taking away some of those options are part of why there's so much frustration and aggression in our young people. Yeah,
I didn't know. So there's schools that can't play rugby at the moment.
yeah. So there's some, like, I think at both of the schools that I was at previously, like the kids were not allowed to play any contact sport. And so I was like, and I had heard from, I think it was a PD, where a lady was like, it's horrible that they've taken some of these things away because they're trying to protect these kids from getting injured. But actually sometimes kids need to learn how to fall, learn how to take a bump, learn how to be disappointed, learn how to lose, learn how to win. Like those are all really good lessons that you can learn from just a simple game of playing rugby at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is sad that it's been taken away.
Yeah. So it's just interesting. And I think it was going to lead into, and maybe you have some more to add, Pete, but I was curious about how different generations process trauma.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is a good one. I feel like as a generation where we're at, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 42.
Too old.
but like around this age, I feel like you've kind of half did your parents' stuff. And then now all this research has come out and you're kind of more woke. And so now you understand a bit more and you're like, okay, so it's not that, it's this. So like even with psychology and my training, like I trained in applied behavior analysis. Like I have my own reasoning as to why I think I went down that path because I found emotions too hard and it was very logical. So I was like, I can do that. Because this is like going back 20 years. I can do that. But then the more I started to grow and heal, I'm like, no. That doesn't have the whole picture. And then as I started to grow, I'm like, back in the day, we would like, be the ones to tell kids, tell teachers kids need to be in timeout and all that kind of stuff. And now it would be so different because the focus is so much more on self-regulation, right? Like teaching them that. But that's all happened recently. So I think about our parents. It's been so beautiful for me watching my dad at 71. He's such an awesome man. So we lost our mum nearly 6 years ago, and I've watched his journey coming from the generation that he did, where there wasn't any talk of emotions. You don't, you do it, just harden up, and you just do what you have to do, and you serve your parents. Like the Indian cultures, collectivist culture, like probably similar, and so. I remember when my mother passed, and my dad was always a protector, provider, but we didn't have an emotional connection, and we went through my mother. But now my mother isn't there anymore, and dad was like, he was trying to connect, and I was so angry. Like I was like, well, you just want to know me now because mama's not here, for this is the honest truth. And then I had to choose to go through the mess to get to know him and his heart. And when I heard his story, I was like, oh my gosh, how did you love us as well as you did? Had no idea, right? And so we have an awesome relationship now. And I had the privilege of choosing that because when mom passed and stuff like that. But the previous generation, if you have somebody that's open enough. So we have discussions on dad will tell me, when I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. And then we process it together and stuff because, we're in that place where we can do that. But if you have somebody that's from that generation that is not open to it, it can be hard and confronting if you think about it. Like my dad's awesome for being able to let his kids, touch on things and talk to him about things and challenge him on things because you probably get a slap in India, if you try that, but if I think about it, if you are open and if you are open to learning and healing till the day that you die, you will grow. But a lot of people are stuck in that because that's how they were raised. But then if they want to grow, they have to confront themselves. And it's not easy confronting yourself at any age, leave alone, 60, 70, 80, because it's almost like, so the way we were doing it was all wrong, or are you telling me that my parents were wrong? So my dad's thing would be he'll be like, I had amazing parents, and I'm like, yes, you did. I'm not saying you didn't have amazing parents. You had amazing parents. This is not an attack on anybody. This is let's look at what's happened, where we've come from, so we can process how it's affected us, so that we can move forward. It's not to say I believe people do better when they know better. I don't think people go and have kids to be how can I make their life miserable? Everybody wants to be better than what their parents were. And so if we start from a place that's there's no judgment here. We're just looking to be like, we're just doing a little bit of introspection so we can be like, oh, and that's why this happened. Okay, great. Now that I know, like, let's focus on a solution. Like, what do we need to do to move forward from here? So, yeah, does that answer
Yeah,
you?
that's good. That's a good point.
So if you're an adult and you really want to understand your parent, say your parents in their 60s, 70s as well, and you know that something's just happened, but we, like, all of us won't have that kind of training, and we just want to do what we have in our toolkit. Like, how do we try and understand the other person? Because what I heard you say is we have to hear their story to really get the backdrop around why they are the way they are. And is that the minimum that we can do, is just rather than react and jump and kind of go, oh, now you want to know me, or oh, now you want us to change. Yeah, what's the minimum we can do to try and, you know, keep that relationship, maybe understand that relationship a little bit more? Is it just hear their backdrop?
I think mess is beautiful, and I think people are scared of mess, so people run away from mess. But that's where the beauty is, because if we're honest, no two people can get along with each other until they fully reveal themselves. And when you do that, because we're wired so differently, there will be some clash. And so most people are scared of things getting shaky. But if you're okay with that, like, it doesn't matter even if you're like, oh, now you want to know me, whatever. As long as you're there, you show up, you talk through it, you're happy to move forward and hear the other person as well, and then choosing it. Because if you've been through years and years of stuff, you know, we touched on some of the stuff that's like pain exists in people, and some of the reactions may not be voluntary, you know, like some of the ways in which we behave or operate. And so having grace for yourself and grace for whoever that is, your family member, if you're in a position where you're able to sit and talk to them. But definitely advise to try and process stuff before going, you know, like, if you can. And I wasn't in that state. I just lost my mom, so I was a bit all over at that time. But if you can, it's always better to bring something up when you're not upset and you're not emotional and you've taken stock of your thoughts. So even journaling or like a brain dump and writing things down, just as you write, you get clarity. And then you might be like, oh, actually, I'm not upset about ABC like I thought. It's actually XYZ. So getting clear on what you want to talk about or what you want to ask the other person, and catching them at a good time. So what is it that they enjoy doing? Are they a quality time kind of person? Or, you know, how do they interact with people? So you might sit down with them and you might have a meal with them and have a conversation. And you might start off by telling them all the things that you love or appreciate about them. And then
That's
gradually
not always
bring
easy,
some.
though.
No, it depends on, yes.
Because you know, you might have somebody who, like, you want to do that,
Yeah.
but all they do is just attack, and then you're like, do I really want to try? Because how do you make it? I mean, how do you? But you still know the importance of saving that relationship, you know, because it's family, and you don't really want to like cut that off for good. But you know, you walk into there and you're like, okay, I'll be open, I'll try listen, but all they're doing is just, but you didn't do this and you didn't do that and da-da-da-da, and you know that's trauma that might be sitting there. But how do you wear that?
So
you're
talking about a relationship that's, like, would you say toxic? Like you can't...
No, like brother, sister, or like family. No, we've gone away from romantic now. We're going to family now. So in those kind of relationships where, you know, you want to try and understand, but all they're doing is, you know, they're just picking out all the things you haven't done for them. And you know that it's the trauma stuff that's talking, but it still doesn't wear nice. You're still going, what the fuck are you attacking me for? Why are you attacking? And all you feel is the attack. Maybe my trauma is now coming up. But you also know the value in the relationship. So how do you, without any training, other than the love for your family member, how do you work through that? But everything they're saying is painful and all your trauma is now coming out. How do you what do you do to, like, do you say, hey, our monkeys are talking right now? Like, do we call that out, or do we, like, but then, you know, then there's a defense mechanism that comes in. Like, how do you But you want to make the relationship work. So what do you do to kind of not wear that attack?
So every situation is obviously different, but you're speaking about something specific, right? So in this situation, would you say that there are sometimes moments that are positive and nurturing and loving, and
Yeah, another engagements. We know how to get on, but then I guess when the shit hits the fan, then it's just it's time to bring
Chaos.
out the machine guns.
Yeah.
And then you're just like hitting each, like then you're just really just attacking each other because maybe you don't want to admit, or but then you kind of know what's happening, but the attacks still hurt, and now you're like, okay, my defense mechanisms are going up. I don't want to talk to you, but this is just all monkey talk. It's not even us two.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do they know that the comments hurt you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes when
Otherwise
it's
they wouldn't
siblings-
say it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but you
To get a
visibly
reaction.
show that it's affecting you?
Do I visibly show?
Yeah, like when they're saying stuff to you.
No.
Are you like,
I'll hear
you're
it.
showing that you're upset?
No.
Okay, so is it a matter of like putting a boundary in place to be like, and actually bringing that boundary up when they're in a good space with you? Like often we don't want to talk about that when we're in a good space because we don't want to ruin the mood or whatever. But if we can find a space where the times that the interaction's going well, like maybe you go out for a meal together or something like that, and then in the context of that you might bring up the incident and say, hey, how for the future this is what I'm thinking I might do, which is if it's getting too much, I'm going to be like, hey, you know what, like we're going to come back to that, but not right now, and I'm going to walk away. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you or that I'm abandoning you. It just means that I care about our relationship, and so I'm putting this boundary in place so we can talk about it when we're cool and calm and collected, as opposed to saying things that we don't mean that really hurt each other.
Yeah.
Would
So
that
maybe
be
that might work. I think just saying, hey, I'm really not feeling you right now. It actually isn't sitting well with me, and I need some time out.
I find it works better when we bring it up when like beforehand, and then like when it happens in the moment, in the heated moment, you've already warned them in a good space beforehand where you've gone, hey, if this happens, like because I love you and I care about our relationship, when this happens, I'm thinking of this, and then get their buy-in as well. What do you think? What do you think is a good strategy? Because for me, this is how I respond to conflict, and it's getting too much. So this will be my boundary. And they might go, oh, like they might say anything. They might be like, I had no idea you were even feeling that way, or and then you can say, well, I was, and so that's why this is what I'm going to do. And if I walk away, because if you walk away, the argument won't continue. And it's, I guess at that stage, it's not about who won. It's more about let's come back to it later when we're ready to talk about it, when we're more in our frontal lobe. Because by that stage, we've lost all rational thinking. We've all been there where we've had arguments with family members or something, and at the end of it, you're like, what did I even say, or what even just happened? And there's not much recollection because the rational part of our brain is not in operation. We've gone to, like you said, the monkey brain, or like we're just all over. We're reacting from the emotional part of our brain, so we're not actually all there. But if we take a break and process, with the husband or with somebody else, and then come back to it, like maybe journal and write down the points that really annoyed you, and then go back to it when you're calmer. That might be one way.
Yeah, that could help. And in terms of walking away, can you walk away for like how long is too long?
I don't think anything is.
Oh, good. Okay.
Like,
so a few months is okay.
Okay. Well, it's up to you, because I actually think there's no right or wrong, right? Like in a relationship, like you get to choose what you like. You get to choose your boundary.
Yeah.
But usually, like a day, a week, whatever. Usually, if you want to, keep the momentum of the relationship going, depending on who the relationship
might
is
have lost the momentum. But it maybe because I'm also not like from a well-being context, I'm just not physically, mentally ready to take another hit, and so I'm like, I need to look after me for now. And then maybe when I'm ready, I'll come back in.
Yeah. And that's a good thing to be doing, to protect yourself and look after yourself, because you already know where you're at. So if you go back, it'll just cause, more hurt and pain that, if you're not ready, it's better to wait. But obviously there must be a lot of unprocessed stuff there as well, because the anger and stuff, like you're saying, it's just a defense mechanism. It's easier to kind of project and blame you. So then, but often when people do that, they actually like I know it's not an easy thing to listen to, but they're hurting more on the inside, so it's easier to just go attack, 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 attack.
Yeah.
But actually, they you'd be surprised he or she might be aware of a little bit more aware than you think they are.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, no, that's helpful. That's very helpful.
That was a good point that you mentioned.
That's cool.
The question that you asked.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's good. Obviously we're talking about a lot of the trauma and the healing. I'm just wondering, because obviously there's people who've been wronged by other people, perpetrators and so forth. But is there such a thing called self-inflicted trauma? That someone can just bring the trauma on themselves because of the decisions they've made. Is there such a thing that I'm just assuming that people just and then and fall victim. Oh my gosh, the traumatic event and so forth. But really, it was all their own doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. This is just Shilpa's opinion.
No, good, Shilpa.
There's 20 years worth of experience.
Nice. I think there's two parts to it, because sometimes if you look at the past, the reason why you're doing the self-inflicted stuff is because of what you've been through. You know, so that could also be like you've been through so many traumatic situations that you're just reacting and not responding, and then you're the victim. Like, 6 years ago, I was like the biggest victim. Everything was everybody else's fault. Nothing was he did it and she did it and mom did it and dad did it, so it's hard to come like face to face with yourself, but once you do, everything changes. So there's that side too. But yeah, I do think you can, do things. I do think you can do things, but I don't know. That's a good question you ask, because self-inflicted trauma, because I'm like, when you make those decisions, it's likely you're doing that because your brain, is reacting and not responding. So I'm verbally processing here while I'm talking to you that actually it's most likely because of what's already happened to you that you keep putting yourself in that situation. Yeah.
Or they could just be delusional. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or just in terms of like self-sabotage, all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh man, I don't know. Maybe because I've just met some people like, so why are you always doing that? And I don't know. So why are you always going back to this
situation?
Situation. And I don't know. I thought, man,
is it like a relationship with a partner or something that they keep going back to? Because that could be.
Oh, just I guess some decisions that people make, and I think, okay, it's maybe, and like you said, maybe it's because of things in the past that have happened to them, and I'm thinking, and I'm not privy to, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I just know, man, why? And they know, like, and then we have the conversation. I shouldn't be doing that. And you're right, but I'm doing this, and then all of a sudden they just go back to square one. Like, what are you? Yeah. So I'm just wondering.
So is this in context of some kind of like addictive behavior, or are you talking about just a relational thing? Or are you talking about?
Oh, in terms of, I think it's just in terms of decisions that people make, and then or some people that I know make. Like, oh my gosh, aren't we gone past this stage, and we've had this conversation, and then when we're going back to this again, it's just reoccurring again. What? We just had this conversation. And it just seems like it's just
cycle.
It's like Groundhog Day. And it's just like, it's a cycle. And so,
as weird as it is, so like obviously every situation is different. But if I come from a family where chaos and abuse is normal, and then you put me in a relationship with this really nice guy, I'm just gonna get bored and try and start a fight or lose it. And like that, and we see that with our moms, right? Like, so some of them have been in really like traumatic situations, and then suddenly they've met a really nice guy, and they've had the second baby with them or whatever, and then they'll say to me, Shilpa, like, it's just, he's so nice, like it's so boring. I really want to start a fight here, and it's because your nervous system, as weird as it sounds, you feel safe in chaos because that's all you're used to.
Wow.
So you've got to like retrain yourself to feel, okay to be in the context of a safe, healthy, and loving relationship, because to you, love looked like something else, like growing up, and then now you're with somebody that's really nice, and you don't want to bots it, you don't want to mess it up, but at the same time you're like, this is just boring, like. So we've had mums that are, for sure. We do that all the time without realizing our context of safety means something else. Though in the natural, it's like, this is more safer. But you're like, that's familiar to you, so your brain responds. And so it takes a while to get off the hamster wheel. Took me a while to get off the hamster wheel. It takes a while, a few tries. But I think because you know how they say like change and growth is not linear, it's going to be messy. But over time, if you make the decision in your heart, like I'm moving forward, I'm never going to go back, even if you stuff up, but your focus is I'm moving forward, you'll get there. Like once you decide, you'll get there. And it doesn't matter how many times you go on that hamster wheel. I think the good thing to look at is the time increasing between the number of times you get on that hamster wheel. So like if whatever decision, like maybe 1 month I'm doing it 10 times that month, and then the second month I'm doing it 5 times. That's still an improvement. Like, well done, Shilpa. You know, like, is there like some kind of encouragement phrase and stuff? Because often we're so hard on ourselves when we stuff up, but we never give ourselves the credit, because we might still be like, oh, well, that's still 5 times this month. But actually that's 5 less than last month. And good, we're moving ahead, right? Because you think about a baby, learning how to walk. Like when they stand up, even though they sit straight back down, everyone's like, like go, you know. And then like we're so mean to ourselves. Like what's that inner bully in your head? But anyway, I again went away on a bunny trail.
That's cool. It's cool. No, that's awesome.
That's cool. So it's not so much minimize it. Sorry, my question is, do you substitute the behavior with something new?
What behavior are we talking about?
Like, you know, the one that we're talking about here, the self-inflicted behavior that causes the trauma, and you're just living it all the time because that's your impulse. And if you're trying to move away from that, and you're minimizing it from 10 times this month to 5 times next month, is it that can you actually do that, or do you need to have like a substitution? Like you're consciously aware of it, and then do you need to replace it with something? Or
I suppose it depends on the kind of behavior. Like say, and I use this example at the workshop, but say every time I'm stressed, I need chocolate cake, you know.
And that's the one like that you bought us.
Yeah,
The one we're fighting over after this.
Oh man, that's you stress. That's good stress.
It's de-stressing you.
Yeah.
So
use another example.
Okay, every time I'm stressed, I smoke. Like I'm not a smoker, but say somebody who's stressed, every time they're stressed, they have a smoke, and they decide, okay, I've been smoking for 10 years. I want to change this. I want to go for a walk instead. So they want to rewire their brain. They need a certain number of repetitions. And the latest research from Andrew Huberman says it's not necessarily like 3 months or, you know, people say 21 days. It's not really like that. It depends on your intentionality and how your brain is wired, that it can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 353 days or whatever. Everyone's different, right? So when I do that, I'm trying to figure out how to do it without drawing it on a board. But, you know, if I have a neural pathway or a highway that's like every time I'm stressed, I smoke. Every time I'm stressed, I smoke. That highway or that pathway is really thick, and my brain wants to wipe that out. Like I want to wipe that out, and I want to create a new pathway. Every time I'm stressed, I go for a walk. Or every time I'm stressed, I ring my friend. I'm creating a new pathway or a new behavior. Now, research says that even if I get stressed and I smoke, straight after that, I want to come back down to going for a walk or ringing my friend, because I want to follow it up with my replacement habit, because over time I will link it. And so focusing on with intention on what it is that I want to replace it with. And that's how you can rewire your brain. But it takes time. I mean, on average, they say like it can take up to 2 years, you know, like to change a strong pattern in your life, to rewire it. But when you're dealing with trauma, another thing to consider is actually all the, think of a computer and think of it having like 100 open tabs. You know, like how efficient is that computer? It's going to be really slow. But if you want to process stuff and if you want to function better, you need to actually go back to every open tab and close it. And sometimes that closure can be complicated. So if you were a kid and you were, say orang Tamariki, a social worker showed up at school and took you, and you were away from your family in a foster care situation for like a month or 2, and then your family got you back, but nobody talked to you about why you left, what happened, and now you've come back. Nobody's had that conversation because, hey, you're just a kid, what do you know? Say that happened, then maybe you're 50, and in your mind you think, oh, I was naughty, so I got taken away that time, and there's something innately wrong with me. I am the mistake here, I'm the problem. And that could be an open tab. That could be causing all kinds of stuff in your life. But actually, if somebody sat next to you, helped you process, or you process yourself and close that tab, then it makes a big difference to your overall well-being. So all of those open tabs, and once they're closed, you don't want to go and open them back up again. Process it, close it. Because some of us, I've been guilty of that as well. Like, it's like, have we dealt with it or what? Like, always going back.
It's still half open.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so bringing complete closure to situations and moving forward. Yeah,
So you need to press the X, not the minimize.
That's good.
not
So
the
good.
minimize.
Oh, that's such a
good.
great
Good
metaphor.
advice.
Love that. Yeah, that's good.
I love it.
Very good.
That's so good. I like, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'd say, Shilpa, just the wealth of experience and the wealth of knowledge that you have. But I just for me, I got one more question because just for fathers, or even parents in general, how can we support our children if we suspect they've experienced trauma? How do we have the conversation with our kids, or even more so in teenagers? How do we support them?
I think first of all, if we go back to the very beginning, having conversations around safety and things like that, and keeping open channels of communication with your kids is really crucial, because then when something goes off or goes wrong, they're able to come and tell you. So if there's that context of safety already. The second thing is, if that has not happened, because we all touched on a major point today, which is around feeling safe, right? Before you communicate or share something. So I would encourage dads to find the interest of their child or their teenager, and not the other way around, and actually engage in their interest and start to build a connection and a relationship with them, so that then in the context of that, safety can happen if it hasn't happened, and then have a safe space where they can connect with them. But if the father or the mother have had unhealed trauma themselves, that is going to be a trigger, isn't it? So that's why it's so important that they're open to their own healing as well, and have people that they can contact, whether it's your community, whether you have whoever your village is, whether it's a church or whether it's a community group or space, or whether it's a counselor or a therapist, if it's gotten to that stage where there's some, deep traumas that have been unraveled, to be able to process some of that stuff. There's also a lot of stuff on social media that's beneficial, but a lot that's not as well. But, there are some people that share some really good information on this kind of stuff. One is the holistic psychologist. Have you come across her?
Is she the one with lots of posts?
They all have lots of posts.
Is she the one that, does she act stuff out? Or
Yes, she does.
Yeah,
she does. Yeah,
one.
and she's pretty good because she explains things in a very simple, easy to understand way, and she's written lots of books and stuff.
Cool.
Gabor Mate is another one.
It's coming to
follow.
New Zealand next year.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
And then there's also, there's so much. There's a book called The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Have you come across that?
I have heard of that a couple of times now. I haven't read it.
Well, there's you can access the whole book via Spotify actually, and you can listen to it if you want to listen to an audiobook.
Yeah.
And so that's a good one too, because people don't realize that when you've experienced trauma, it can manifest in your body in different ways. People just think, we tend to separate the human experience, but actually, there's so much to a human being. And so when you go through stuff, so to be aware of all of that stuff and to actually go and learn about trauma and what it is that they could have gone through to understand them better. And sometimes it may be that, as hard as it might be for a parent, but they may not be the right fit to talk about the trauma with the child or to help them navigate as much as you would want to if you're a parent. Sometimes getting somebody else in, because sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger than it is to your family members sometimes. So being open to that as well, I guess. Yeah.
It's good.
That's
Good
awesome.
advice. Yeah. No, that's great. Oh, man.
I'm curious, Shilpa, for someone who has so many traumatic experiences, having your own trauma as well, how do you maintain a healthy boundary for yourself where you don't take on? Because I find sometimes hearing even just the stories of the kids, I hear some of the things they live through, and it really affects me when I get home and I'm like, why aren't my kids more grateful? You have such a good life when the kids that I teach are living through horrible things. And it really messes with me sometimes. And I'm still trying to find ways to keep that boundary so that when I get home, it's not my kids' fault that they're you know, have a decent life, and just treating them both separately. But how do you maintain that kind of safety for yourself?
Firstly, that's so normal because you're a compassionate, kind, empathetic human being. So that is so normal to feel all of that stuff. When I first started off, I would find it really hard, like in my role as a psychologist. And then I started implementing certain practices. One being when I walked out the self-opening doors of work, I would say loudly, "Goodbye, work. I will see you tomorrow." Because I'm like, I'm shutting down now. Like, that's my compartment. You know, because otherwise I'd go home and I'd be like, what happened to that kid? Oh my gosh, like, are they okay? You know, because you think about them. But you can't control anything that's happening. And often all the agencies and the right people that need to be involved are already involved. People know about it. So there's very little change that you can, you know, by stressing about it. And over time, not just that, even I think because it's been so long now, like, I don't know how much you believe in, like, you know, energies and stuff like that, because you can absorb people's stuff. So having an activity, so for example, if I go for like a full day workshop and it's been so intense and I've heard all this other stuff, an example would be like when we were driving back from Northland, the girls and me, the two mums that came to help, the whole drive back was karaoke, like laughing, joking, singing. Like that was such a great transition because, you know, it's so good for your brain, like laughing and music and exercise and stuff, so good for your brain. Or if you've had a stressed out day, like going straight to the gym and throwing some weights around, that used to be really good for me. Like I used to train a lot before. So, you know, throwing weights around and stuff is so good for you. And then having a good connection of friends and people that you can talk to, or like I feel like, I don't know what it's like with teachers, but I feel like if you could have I don't know, supervision is maybe the wrong word, but having a place where you can just go blah, like, because sometimes, because you're seeing so much in the day. First of all, I have mad respect for teachers because I'm like, you have so many students, and I mean, by the end of the day, your brain might just be like, I feel like I could not do that, like, you know, because you're so in tune. So like research says that all the parts of your brain are most lit up when you're engaging in social interaction, and for a teacher that's all day. So when you come home at the end of the day, you're probably like just pooped, right? So you would need an activity or something, like maybe like a transition activity. Like I don't know if you can go to does the water calm you down, or does the greenery calm you down? Because I love the waves and the water. So buy it.
Water, wind.
Yeah, because if you think of, they talk about how you have ions, so IONS, positive ions that get collected in your body with the stress and everything that you go through. And then when you go to the water has negative ions, so it's like a magnet, and it goes whoosh, and you know, like, and I can see that for me because I'm like, the water is really a good place. So then I would intentionally take time out. If you like water, I just need to go sit by the water, listen to the waves, get a coffee, get some hot chips, I don't know, whatever you like.
That's
like
right,
just
yeah,
to
hot
switch
chips.
off. Whatever you need to switch off. And also the mind, body, spirit, soul stuff, because it gives a focus where it's like, it's something to do with you and it's about you. So even if you can wake up 15 minutes earlier for the day before anybody else and just pour into you, whatever that might look like, whether it's a walk or whether it's you know, just journaling, or whether it's listening to a podcast or whatever it might be. That's what I do, those kind of things. Because when I don't, it's not good for me. And so there are times where, you know, like if I don't do that, I might like do doom scrolling or something, you know, like you're just like,
oh my gosh, I learned what that is today.
We learned about that today.
you know, and then you're like, and then you
3
feel
hours
more
later.
brain dead. Like you're like, is my brain still working?
Yeah.
So I might, so being aware of that, and I found the best thing for me is this singing and being crazy and like just, you know, just like letting loose, because you get rid of all that energy. Like if you can find an activity that works for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
cool.
love that.
That's
Thank
cool.
you so
That's
much.
cool.
You said something at the beginning that I really want to understand a little bit more, is heart healing, or healing the heart, because we're so in tune with physical, mental, and they're all isolated like compartments of who we are, and quite often they're treated in isolation.
Yeah.
So when you talk about heart healing, what do you mean by that? What is that?
So essentially I just mean like being able to process your trauma and being at peace with yourself. A lot of the times people even in my own journey, I found that the hardest thing was forgiving myself, because people go through that because you tend to betray yourself to please everybody else. And, self-betrayal is a whole other topic on its own, but you become what society expects of you. You become what people expect of you. And so you lose your authenticity. And when you lose your authenticity is when you end up, struggling with all kinds of stuff, whether it's anger, addiction, whatever. All the negative things that happen is because you don't feel free to be you. And that happens very early on in life in terms of how we're raised. And again, no judgment towards anybody. People do better when they know better. But if we look at the context of stuff, like maybe it's people pleasing. So like if you think about a kid, they do whatever they need to survive. And so you do want to please your parents because your survival kind of depends on that. And so, like you do you say the right things, do the right things, be the right things. And so being able to go to a place of being at peace with yourself is like one of the biggest things. And I find that when people haven't healed their heart, like even if they have the best intentions, I've come across some amazing people, like that want to come and help. Like they want to come and help the young moms. They want to come but their trauma gets triggered. And then like 3 sessions down, we're not even talking about them. Our girls are sharing stuff. And then they might say, this recently somebody was like, we were talking about, I drew 3 cups on the board, and I was talking about mom, me, and my baby. And so I was talking about what was in mom that came to me and what's in me that could go into my baby. And we're talking about that. And somebody that's really awesome and wanted to help out got totally triggered. She's more my age, but she wanted to help out. And she just messaged me and she just said, Shilpa, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm healed enough to help anybody. But for me, I'm like, this is a great space where we can all heal together. I'm like, it's okay. So there's also that other side of people being okay to be vulnerable, like to just show this is me, because even that is a big thing in society because people feel like you have to have it all together. And I find like, especially if you're a professional, you feel like, you have to have it all right, or you have to have like, you can't show your vulnerability and often what we do with diamonds is like we're journeying alongside. So I'm facilitating, I'm not your teacher or I'm not your leader. We're in this together. And so if something comes up for me, I'm telling them like, oh man, and they're telling me, and like we're growing and healing together and journeying. Yes, I have studied psychology and I might have 20 years of experience, whatever. But in that we're human to human and we're journeying together. So another situation as well at a school where I created this really cool superhero program for young kids to help them with emotion, strength and resiliency and stuff, boys aged 10 to 12. And we had a situation where, because they all came from like the gang pad down the road, and we had a situation where one of them, while he was in order to maintain his hierarchy, kicked another kid in the ribs. And when that happened, the teacher that was meant to be there to manage the situation, I have 10 boys and they're all 10 to 12, right? Like around that age. She just got up and left. She just got up and left and she went, I can't do this, Shilpa. And I went, oh, okay. And so I'm like trying to manage these kids, but it was fine. Like I had things that I could do, but it made me realize, because we chatted later, we debriefed later, and stuff had come up for her. So she couldn't be in that. So I'm a real big promoter of, like, when we're working in these spaces, it's so important that we take responsibility for our healing, because then we can be more efficient, as painful as it is or as hard as it is. Like, you can never go wrong by starting your healing journey, and then you're able to better help somebody else and journey alongside them.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. And I think it's important for people to recognize that that's the journey they're on in that moment. And while there's no time frame, that you're working towards finding that sense of whether it's forgiveness or healing or recovery, or maybe you can't recover it, whatever it is. But cool. I really get that, and I really appreciate that, because I think if people understand that, then they'll give themselves that time to do that and not feel rushed or feel the self-betrayal. God, that's an interesting topic.
That's a whole topic on its own.
That's for part two.
That's a cool topic, because we trade ourselves all the time.
Yeah, I wrote a book actually in 2020, and I published it, and it was actually all on my journey to learning to love myself. It's called Journey to Love, by coming from self-hate and like going through trauma and stuff, and then choosing. And so it's kind of designed a bit like it's kind of like a spiritual, like a workbook thing as well, with my own story and journey and all of that. And in that, like, I talk a lot about reparenting yourself, what does that look like, and your inner child and that sort of stuff, and also self-betrayal, all these things that are so important, forgiveness, why it's so important, all that kind of stuff, because that helped me. That writing the book actually helped me.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it's so important taking stock of our own healing and understanding that we're going to be learning and growing and healing till the day that we die, but it doesn't stop us from enjoying our life and living our purpose. I love what you shared before, because I love that, like, even with the work that you guys do with, suicide prevention and stuff, I love that the focus is that, because I found for a long time that the focus has always been on the reactive side of things. But I feel like if you show someone their purpose and why they're alive, that automatically is the opposite of, not wanting to be here. And so, like, giving them that space where, you can start to see what's good about you. And it's amazing how, like, you can go into a school and kids that are 16, 17, 18, ask them what their strengths are, and they can't even think of one sometimes,
Wow.
So, like, you're starting at, like, grassroots, but yeah.
That's cool. I tell you, what a great talanoa, great kōrero. Just, and like you said, I really believe, in terms of the introduction, you got a massive heart, Shilpa, and I know you do this not because I'm just doing this for the sake of doing this, but you have a massive heart for not only for the community, for our people in Mangere, South Auckland, but people in general. And kudos to you, props to you, Shilpa, for doing what you do, and all the best. For me, for me personally, just think, man, what a great initiative in terms of Diamonds in the Rough, and the young woman and the young wahine that you take on board and you help and assist and empower them. Props to you. Godspeed and God bless you, sis. Appreciate that.
Thank you, and thank you to you guys. Oh my gosh, I really love what you guys do and what you're about, and I have no doubt that many families are healing because of what you're doing. And I love the different ranges of people that you bring, because from really famous to, like, people that nobody knows, like me, like, people don't really but I love that you care about each person and what they bring in their experiences, and that everybody has something to offer, and so many people, I'm sure, are getting healing and able to understand themselves better and have a space where they can grow and be better men. Like you're saying, we need more fathers and more men to be better men, and that's what you guys are doing. You're raising up a generation of healthy men, so thank you for what you guys are doing. That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, Shilpa. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it today. I loved your metaphors. They're so powerful.
So powerful. I love them.
Because I'm all about simplifying the message. I'm all about trying to... I need to understand it first, and I'm a simple person, so I need it simplified. And those metaphors you shared today, I hope will travel far and wide and deep in people's lives, because trauma's real. That monkey that jumps out of us in those moments, we don't want it to. Like, I genuinely want to have a genuine relationship with people, but that monkey jumps out and you're like, get back, but you can't, it's already out. And I think what you've done tonight is made us a lot more aware. You've given me some really good tools around how to manage when somebody else's monkey is provoking my monkey. It's okay to say, look, right now I need a time out, and even if it's for a few months, I'll come back. Just when my heart is healed, I will come back so that monkey doesn't jump back out. But no, this whole conversation has been rich. So thank you so much for that, and I really hope other people see take something really good out of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, honestly, it's been amazing. I think I came in here almost selfishly because I was like, oh man, I want to know all about this, because you'd mentioned before that the word trauma gets thrown out a lot. And I think for many of us out there, we've heard the word and we know a little bit about our experience, but we don't quite know how to classify it as trauma and what that means and how to unpack it, how to begin healing. And I think I imagine for a lot of the people that are watching and listening, and even just for us around the table, I think you've given us a lot of insight and a lot of tools of just how to start and just how to frame our experiences, how to frame our trauma and how to frame our healing. And I think, I'm just really grateful that you've come tonight and that you've been able to share so much in so little time. Honestly, like they said, we could have kept going, but I think this is a really good starting point for us. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Where do people get your book?
Oh, I don't know if they want to read it.
Where can people find you, Shilpa? Like, obviously, Diamonds in the Rough.
Yeah,
And the work that you do, the workshops that you do.
Yeah, so I've got a business called Rise Coaching and Consultancy where I train anybody that wants to be more trauma informed and to understand about the brain and some of the red brain, green brain stuff that we didn't get into today.
Love
but
that.
we were touching on that a little bit in terms of when our threat response system takes over. And yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. My email is diamondsintherough19@gmail.com. Yeah, and we've got websites for both Diamonds and Rise as well.
Yeah, awesome. No worries. We'll put the link on the episode, but awesome. But I was going to ask you, how can you differentiate trauma versus demon possessed?
Then I can tell you.
You need a Catholic priest now.
Have you stopped Brad? Like,
Not yet. You can tell us that secret later.
Yeah, over the cake outside.
Thank you, Shilpa. But Shilpa, no, thank you so much, Shilpa. But we do have a gift for you, Shilpa. Every guest that comes on, we always do a caricature, a cartoon of how we envision them to be. And so on behalf of the Mandate team,
That is so sweet.
this is for you, Shilpa.
Oh,
thank you very much.
so
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, who did this? Was that you? You're so talented.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, but
Thank you.
thank you for your time, Shilpa. But Shilpa, is there anyone that you can think of, like, man, off the top of your head, like, oh, you need to have this person on the podcast?
Joseph Wilson, you need Joseph.
I'd love to have
You
him.
need
Joseph.
him on your podcast for sure.
Awesome.
Are you a brother-sister team?
Yeah, people would say that. We actually get along really well for brother and sister, but I can share more later.
Cool.
But yeah.
Oh,
Joseph.
awesome, Joseph. That'd be cool.
Joseph would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice.
Shilpa, hey, but we give our guests the last words. Any words of encouragement for the viewers and the listeners, Shilpa?
I think, again, I'm bringing Joseph into it, but one of the things that he says, one of his quotes is, I am where I am and I'm growing every day. And that's really helped a lot of us, really, to know that it doesn't matter how long it's taking you. Just keep taking one step in front of the other and keep moving forward. And you are growing every day. So just trust the process and just keep moving forward, and you got this. Yeah.
Lord love it. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Shilpa.
you.
Awesome. Please don't forget to subscribe. We look forward to your wealth of comments. And as usual, team,
Refine.
Unlock.
and take charge.
I'm living dreams on so many places that I've never been, I never seen, and I agree that I need to redeem myself to be a better human being and keep it clean as a river.